Haunted by the unknown, the sinister rules every fire lookout must follow to survive in Alberta. Sarah had traded the busy streets of suburban Calgary for the eerie silence of a fire lookout tower in the remote Alberta wilderness, but she quickly realized that peace can breed its own kind of terror. The first night, while darkness settled like a thick shroud, she made the mistake of reading the first of the sinister notes scrawled on yellowed paper tucked away in her supply box. Abide by the sinister rules or face the consequences. A chill crawled down her spine, a feeling so palpable that it felt like icy fingers gripping her heart. At first, she brushed it off as local folklore, maybe even a rite of passage for those brave enough to work in isolation. Yet the hollow crunch of twigs underfoot and the distant howls of unseen creatures sent shivers through her body each night, gnawing at her reasoning. The trees whispered secrets she was too scared to hear, and shadows danced just beyond her periphery. She wrote it off, right? Just shadows. Then she learned of the recent disappearances. Families vanished without a trace. Her once cozy connection to the community tinged with anxiety, suspicion settled in like thick fog. Each note she received just reinforced what she had heard. Murmurs of tragedy murmured through the wind. She reached out to the local sheriff, but he merely nodded, a disinterested gaze flaunting the vague warmth of a politician. People move away, he shrugged, leaving her with nothing but doubt and dread. As she retreated further into isolation, she felt watched eyes lurking in the trees, flickering lights that snuffed out as she approached. Nightfall brought monstrous silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves and her own quaking breath. Panic clawed at her throat, but curiosity kept her glued to the tower, wondering what the ominous sinister rules might hold. She stumbled upon another note, Rule 3, never turn your back on the forest. What was it about that line that sent bile pooling in her stomach? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications, so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The notes smoked like a slow burn in her gut, as she found the frightening record tucked beneath the floorboards, a grim history detailing unexplained phenomena at fire lookouts throughout the decades. Each entry culminated in macabre incidents centered around her very tower. The last listed disappearance chilled her to the bone. It wasn't just her imagination, something was definitely wrong. Reality warped around her, the line between folklore and her truth starting to erode as the sun vanished behind a cloak of darkness. She could almost hear its soft, beckoning whispers tugging at her consciousness, coaxing her toward the forest's edge where shadows swallowed light. What if the rules weren't just about surviving the job but surviving her very existence? As the last flicker of light slipped away, Sarah stood alone in the eerie blackness, heart drumming in her chest, faced with the question, could she trust the forest or was it too late? As the moon hung low, casting ghostly beams through the trees, Sarah's heart raced like a wild animal trying to escape a predator. She felt each thump reverberate in her ears, drowning out the quiet creaks of the tower. The weight of the forest pressed in on her, silencing the instincts that screamed to run. She clutched the notes, her fingers trembling over their jagged edges, waiting for anything to break through the suffocating tension. The forest shifted. A gust of wind swirled through the trees, and a sinister rustling followed, like whispers shared among specters. It felt wrong, the very air thickening. She peered into the murky depths, her instinct to flee warred with the insatiable curiosity that held her anchored. Rule 3, never turn your back on the forest. Suddenly, her living nightmare morphed into something darker as she pondered what lay behind her, veiled and shadowed. A rustle echoed closer, and then she saw it, a flicker of movement, a dark figure weaving through the trunks. She squinted, her breath catching in her throat. It darted, then vanished behind the underbrush. Was it real? Her mind raced, balancing on the edge of reason and panic. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her, the trees themselves witnesses to an unholy covenant. She turned her back on the forest with a jolt, grappling for the door. The tower felt like a prison, the walls closing in. Each footstep echoed beneath her, a countdown toward a fate she would rather not so. Panic spiraled as she slammed the door shut, trapping whatever could lurk outside, but the sound the whispers enthralled her. They carried soft calls, weaving through the cracks, wrapping her in a delicate tendril of despair. "Sarah," they beckoned, "join us." Her heart thundered with desperation, and she pressed her back against the rough wood, straining to hear. Those haunting voices, had they belonged to the lost families? Her mind raced back to the sheriff's easy dismissal of the disappearances. Did he know more than he let on? Was she just another notch on a belt of vanished souls? She shook her head, fighting the urge to spiral deeper into dread. No, she wouldn't be given that easily. But the air thickened again, the whispers growing louder, more urgent. Despair morphed into panic. She couldn't remain in this tower forever. Glancing at the notes spread around her like fallen leaves, she felt a pit of dread deepen. Were they meant to protect her? Or to lead her into a trap? Suddenly, the door rattled as if something on the other side yearned for entrance. Her heart froze. It felt alive, infused with the promises of the outside. She stumbled back, hand flying to the window to peek through the layers of darkness smothering the world below, and that's when she saw it again, the figure. This time, it lingered longer, a faint outline against the trees, its eyes glowing with a faint, unnatural light. The whispers sharpened into frantic chants, drumming against her thoughts with chilling insistence. Join us, join us." The terror that clawed at Sarah's throat ignited her survival instincts, fueling her to wrench the door open and leap into the darkness. She stumbled forward, heart in throat, determined to escape whatever awaited her, but the figure followed. Shadows twisted and turned, a cacophony of terror pursuing her through the trees. Every instinct screamed at her to turn and see what trailed behind, but she could almost hear Rule 3 echoing in her ears. Could she trust her senses? Or was she already tangled in the forest's web? Each step deeper into the dark opened new pathways of horror. What covered her tracks? And worse yet, what awaited her if she stopped? The shadows loomed larger as Sarah darted deeper into the suffocating darkness of the forest. Branches whipped against her skin like icy hands, and the underbrush conspired beneath her feet, trying to trip her. Breath heaving, each inhale tasted of moss and fear. She didn't dare look back. She could feel it. The figure was still there, a predator in the wings. Panic exploded in her chest. Rule 3 underscored her every step, yet doubt gnawed at her resolve. What if the only way to survive was to confront whatever was chasing her? The whispers were a siren call. Her senses betrayed her, they urged her towards something that felt like home, but it was a home she could never find, twisted and warped by years of despair. Suddenly, the ground sloped downward, leading her into a shallow ravine lined with rocks and roots. A fleeting thought struck her: it might be a trap. But she was too far gone to retreat now. What waited behind her could be even worse. She plunged into the ravine, grimacing as the sharp stones dug into her hands and knees. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices merging into one desperate plea. "Stay, stay," they echoed off the walls of the ravine, thickening the air with desperation. Her heart thundered in rhythm with the calls, a raw and throbbing chant that begged her to listen. Her fingertips brushed the slick side of the ravine. She hesitated, the pulsing in her veins scrambling her thoughts. If she ventured deeper, would the forest swallow her whole? Or would she come face to face with the source of the calls? Desperation clawed at her throat. "Join us," a voice pierced the veil of whispers. Was it familiar? Did she know it? Just as doubt set in, a shifting shadow broke free in the corner of her vision. She turned, panic seizing her mind hot and fast. A flash of glowing eyes returned her gaze, shining like small stars in the blackness. They seemed to draw nearer, impossibly enchanting, but infused with something darker, a promise of pain. She sprinted to the far side of the ravine, driven not by logic but by sheer terror. "Sarah!" The voice rang out now, clearer, an almost commanding presence. She stumbled, caught between the urge to answer and the primal instinct to flee. What part of her was she betraying? The moment hung heavy, a poignant stab in the heart. Friends and family, faces illuminated by soft light in her memory, merged with the ghostly whispers, then it struck her a brilliant flash of clarity. The notes. The warnings they held were not mere scribbles, they were a lifeline. Clutching the half-torn paper, she fumbled through them while her legs churned through the dirt. Rule 1, speak the true names. The adornment of charcoal remnants scrawled across the pages pulled at her. An icy chill shot through her as the realization hit. No, she whispered, the world narrowing to one idea. To survive, she had to name whatever lurked behind her, to strip it of its power. But what if uttering the name invited it closer, too late for hesitation? The whispers morphed, turning sinister. Join us became a low growl, a demand. The figure edged closer, its form coalescing into something undeniably horrific. Shadows gnarled together into a twisted visage, a face that held all those who once answered the call. She spun around, legs nearly buckling under the weight of bone-chilling fear. Mustering her strength, she bellowed into the darkness, invoking the first name that came to her trembling lips. The forest went abnormally silent, waiting, the tension thick as the fading moon above. Would it break her, or would it free her? In the fragile moment of hope and dread, she braced for the worst, knowing that the forest's heart would not remain still for long. And just as she thought she'd regained control, a new voice intertwined within the dark chorus. You've invited me, it rasped, drawing closer. Panic ignited anew. What lay beyond those whispers? What awaited her as she dared utter another name? The air crackled with a tension that threatened to snap like a brittle twig. Sarah's body screamed for movement, but her mind fought against her instincts. The name lingered on her lips, heavy and unyielding, as the shadows around her twisted and pulsed. What had she unleashed? With one swift motion, she pulled herself further against the steep wall of the ravine, the damp earth clinging desperately to her. She hadn't called out a name. She had only whispered a fragment of a truth. And yet the voice, deeper and more resonant than before, slithered into her mind. You invoke the keeper of secrets. A jolt shot through her as recognition slammed into her gut. The keeper, the one who held all the names of those lost in the forest. She read about it in the notes, a warning etched in the edges of her memory. Deep breaths, Sarah. She pressed her back against the cold stone, trying to steady her racing heart. The glow of those eyes was inescapable, inching closer. They flickered like dying embers, teasing her with unearthly warmth even as chills crawled up her spine. She thought of her family, of the warmth of home contrasted with the encroaching darkness. Tell me your name. She shouted, her voice cracking against the suffocating silence. It was a gamble, a call to arms in the chaos. The shadows shivered as if acknowledging her challenge. She clenched her fists and remembered Rule 4. Control the narrative. If she was going to survive this, she needed to take charge to be the enemy's master, not its prey. But instead of some terrible retribution, there was an eerie calm. The shadows pulled back just enough for Sarah to witness their form, vivid, sickening, a haunting representation of fear itself. Tell me your name. She felt the words rhythmically reverberate from her core, each syllable punctuated by the terror that wrapped around her throat. The glowing eyes blinked, and the voice that rose from the dark almost sang, its timbre echoing off the walls. I am the collector of whispers, the keeper of lost souls. You wish to know? The words wrapped around her, slithering through her mind like smoke. A rush of images flooded her thoughts, past lookouts, their faces drained and hollowed, fading as she grasped for understanding. You collect names. You bind them to this place. Yes, it hissed, almost gleeful. Once a name is spoken, the soul has no choice but to come forth. Then I'll take back their names. She felt a raw surge of defiance as the reality of her situation coursed through her veins. Each name held power, and she needed to remember that. She would reclaim what was lost, hers and theirs. I will name you, too. I'll set them free. Laughter erupted from the shadows, a blend of derision and dark amusement. Names can bind, but they can also sever. What will you sacrifice for their freedom, Sarah? The question struck deep, planting doubt like a splinter in her heart. What would she lose? Would unleashing these souls leave a gaping hole in her own? As if sensing her hesitation, the shadows surged forward, threatening to drown her in cold. Bracing herself, she prepared to shout the names of the lost names she had memorized from the frantic scribbles of those who came before. Voices echoed in her mind, urging her onward. Yet her heart paused at the thought of choosing betrayal over survival. With each breath, the voices filled the void with warnings, regrets, and lingering bitterness. Time was slipping away. Are you ready to make a choice? The darkness taunted. And just as she was poised to respond, something broke through the canopy above, the sound of cracking wood and the swift shuffle of something approaching. Dread knotted her stomach. Would it be friend or foe? The moment echoed, tremulous with the weight of fate. Who would emerge from the shadows now? As she turned, heart racing faster, the darkness split open, revealing what lay beyond. A terrible truth loomed, promising to change everything. What she awakened was only the beginning, and she was the one to bear the cost. The darkness parted, and from the void emerged a figure draped in shadow, a silhouette etched against the dying light filtering through the treetops. Sarah squinted, heart hammering against her ribcage, each thump echoing the sweat beading on her brow. Was it a soul? A friend? Sarah. The voice shattered the silence, familiar yet warped, like glass cracking under pressure. It was Ethan, her brother, his face flickering in and out of focus as if reality itself struggled to hold him. His eyes, wide and frantic, searched through the darkness. You shouldn't have come here. Ethan. Panic surged through her. She wanted to rush forward, to grab him, but the shadows coiled tighter around her. How are you? The words died in her throat as the keeper's laughter echoed, a chilling reminder of her predicament. Sarah, listen to me. His voice pierced through the cacophony, slicing through the thick dread. You have to leave. The names they'll drag you into the dark with them. No. I'm here to save you. I can help. Her desperation flared, but something in his gaze held her back. There was no recognition, only fear. What is happening? Fear clawed at her, raw and savage. Don't say their names. He stepped closer, shadows flickering around him like flame, but he looked frightened, like he was fading with every word he spoke. You don't understand. You're playing their game. The shadow creature trembled in delight, swirling with energy, its eyes glowing brighter. Oh, how delicious. A family reunion. It hissed, the malevolence thickening the air. Ethan. She pressed forward, but the shadows thickened and pulled her back. She was trapped within a web of terror, a fight not just for herself, but now for him too. They're bound to this place. You'll be lost among them. He lunged, but the shadows snatched him back, his form flickering more violently now. The agony etched in his suddenly hollow face struck her like a blow. They're hungry, Sarah. Don't feed them. What do I do? The words spilled from her, panic clawing at her throat as Ethan's figure flickered, his presence fraying. It felt like time distorted, stretching into eternity while the shadows coiled tighter, wrapping around her limbs, pulling her into their embrace. Tell me who you are. She screamed at the keeper, defiance mixing with desperation. Let him go. I won't allow you to take another. The darkness quivered in delight, shadows clinging to her skin like tar. Ah, the spark of rebellion. But tell me, what will you sacrifice to save him? Names will drift like smoke upon the wind, but the heart it paused, yearning hung in the air like a melody. The heart is an insatiable void. Ethan clutched his head, now engulfed in shadows, his face contorted with anguish. Sarah. You have to remember Rule 2. Rule 2. But the weight of the moment bore down on her, she couldn't think, couldn't see past the dread. Yet still, some buried instinct flickered to life, the rules scribbled in the margins of the journal. What had she read? The keeper lunged forward, and in that instant, Sarah understood. Face your fears. A surge of bravery coursed through her. If names gave power to shadows, perhaps fear could break their hold. She stepped forward, her voice firm. I am Sarah. I refuse to be bound by your shadows. Ethan's figure broke free momentarily, shimmering in the blurry light. Fight. Remember the others. Use their strength. But the keeper roared, rage echoing, pulling everything back into the dark. Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. She could feel the cold grip of the abyss, and suddenly a feeling of absolute loss wrapped around her, fear turning to despair as shadows threatened to consume. Sarah! Ethan cried, his scream swallowed by the shadows, and suddenly she realized, the moment she fought for was slipping. The things left unsaid. The names unclaimed. Was she ready to risk everything for the whispers of the lost? As the darkness closed in, Sarah screamed out one name, one she'd sworn never to say again. The air crackled with energy, and the shadows shrieked in protest, but would it be enough? The abyss beckoned as the truth twisted like a knife, her heart pounding like a war drum, forcing her to ask what price would she pay for freedom. What lay in the depths waiting to be unleashed? The scream reverberated in the air, hanging like fog, and Sarah felt its weight pressed down on her chest. The name she let slip was a poison, an echo of every horrific memory she'd tried to bury deep inside. The shadows recoiled, writhing and hissing, as if the darkness surrounding her found sustenance in her fear. What have you done? Ethan's voice was a whisper now, choked with panic. A flickering image of his face emerged through the chaos, his eyes reflecting the horror she had unleashed. Shadows twisted around him, distorting his skin into shades of agony. The keeper, the creature at the edge of her sanity, cackled, an echo of maniacal delight. Ah, yes. Feed me more. The names will bring forth their power. It hissed, echoing in tones that tickled her spine. Each whisper stokes the flame. Each memory pulls you deeper. Sarah's heart raced as her mind spiraled. She remembered the first, whispered warnings she'd read in that cursed journal. Each line burning in her memory, names, fears, the rules. Don't say their names, but she felt the weight of the words bleed from her thoughts, tangled like roots in a storm. Ethan's silhouette shimmered, tearing at the seams. Get out, Sarah. Don't let them in. But how? The shadows mocked her, feeding on her confusion as they flickered like fireflies. The aching truth, the truth that the keeper wanted to bury, to devour alive, was that those lost souls weren't just names. They were faces intertwined with her life, memories that haunted her nights, awash with regret. Barely revealed, they echoed through the darkness, clawing for release. The keeper lunged forward, a blur of nightmarish features shifting in the dim light. You've opened the door, girl. Now let us feast. A primal shout burst from her throat, ripping through the dread. I will not feed you. I am not what you crave. The shadows recoiled again, clawing back, howling in fury, their voices tangled in a chorus of agony. But with her voice came a flicker of light, a brilliance that fought against the encroaching dark. You think you can take my soul? You know nothing of who I am. For a heartbeat, silence fell. The keeper's amusement faded, replaced by curiosity. Do you think your defiance holds power? Ethan's trembling image lingered, shimmering uncertainly in that murky threshold. Sarah, the rules. The last one. You have to remember. What? What is it? Her voice echoed through the tension, a snap of tension under the weight of desperation. Embrace the light. He called, anguish coiling in his words. His presence flickered, but the urgency anchored her. The darkness hissed, ready to pounce, but Sarah's dying hope ignited. She recalled the warmth she'd felt during moments of pure laughter, flooded with memories of a sun-drenched field or the first snow of winter. "Embrace the light," she whispered softly, and the shadows recoiled as if burned. Gathering what courage she could muster, she called out to the lost, every name and face flooding back. "I remember you. I remember all of you. I refuse to let your memories die." The shadows writhed, twisting in agitation, but with each name, Sarah felt a pulse of warmth fill her soul. Each name was an anchor, dragging the darkness of despair into light. "You are not forgotten," she shouted, her voice rising, growing stronger with each remembrance, but as the dark retreated, she could feel something sinister brewing in the distance, a force of malevolence so profound it threatened to swallow her light whole. The keeper slithered back, a dark wave surging in anguish as it lost control. "I will return," it bellowed. "You may stand against this wave of darkness now, but it will come again. You will fall." The warning clawed at her heart as she witnessed Ethan's form flicker one last time. "Don't forget, Sarah. Stay vigilant. The shadows will always come back." With that, silence devoured his words, leaving her in the haunting stillness of the woods, alone yet surrounded by the remnants of those who had vanished into the shadows, and as uncertainty wrapped around her like a shroud, a chilling thought crept closer. Could she truly defend against the encroaching dark? The pages of her own fate turned, the foreboding whispers already swirling around her. What else had the journal warned? With dread creeping beneath her skin, she felt the weight of countless pairs of eyes watching from the trees, hungry, waiting for their chance. What if the shadows returned? Who would she sacrifice next? In that lonely, flickering moment, Sarah realized she would have to face it all again. Would her next choice be one of survival, or would it plunge her deeper into the spiral of terror? With the forest closed all around, she understood, the game had just begun. A chill trembled through the trees, shaking the leaves, and Sarah stood still, stifled by the weight of her own fear. The silence settled, thick and oppressive. Each rustle felt like a whisper from the dark, urging her to surrender, to listen. But she wouldn't. Not now. The trees loomed cruelly, their gnarled branches resembling skeletal fingers reaching for her. She strained her ears, listening for any sound that might break the stillness, but all she heard was the pounding of her own heartbeat echoing like a war drum in her chest. Ethan's warning throbbed in her mind, a relentless reminder of the danger that lurked, hungry and restless, beneath the canopy. Suddenly, a crack snapped through the air. The shadows moved, closing in. She whipped around, fear clawing at her throat. Was it the keeper? Would it return to feast on her defiance? Not again, she breathed, feeling a cold sweat seep beneath her shirt. Then, from the edge of her vision, she caught a glimpse of flicker, a vague outline against the darkness. It darted between the rows of trees, too quick to catch a clear sight. Panic swelled inside her, pushing her feet into motion. She had to escape. She had to find shelter. Moving in quick, sharp breaths, she dashed deeper into the woods. The ground was uneven, snaring her feet with roots that wanted to trip her. Each footfall felt like a thunderclap, punctuating the eerie stillness, the trees watching her with silent, judgmental eyes. As she ran, the memories attacked her, voices whispering names. Megan, Jason, each name sent a shiver through her bones. Faces flashed through her mind, a montage of pain, sorrow, and guilt. Were they trapped because of her? Were the shadows drawing closer to consume them all again? Embrace the light. Ethan's voice echoed, a mantra in her ears, sparking an ember of hope within her twisted terror. She kept running until a clearing opened ahead. Light streamed through the branches, inviting yet tainted with shadows. In the center stood a tree, its massive trunk gnarled and ancient. It beckoned her, whispered secrets in the wind. Somehow, she knew it was not a sanctuary, but a potential prison, the keeper's former domain. Heart pounding, she approached cautiously. The massive roots twisted like serpents, threatening to drag her down into the earth. But she had to know. She had to understand. Maybe the journal held something she'd overlooked, something that would aid her. Just as she reached to brush the bark, a deep, guttural growl reverberated through the ground. The hair on her arms stood straight as terror knotted in her stomach. "Come closer, little girl," the voice slithered like fog. "You know they're waiting for you, don't you?" The sinister cadence wrapped around her like a noose, tightening with each utterance. Shadows danced eagerly, and for a terrifying moment, she felt their cold embrace as they licked at her ankles. "No!" she yelled, pulling back. "I refuse you. I refuse to believe." But faint laughter echoed, playful and cruel. The ground seemed to pulse beneath her, reverberating with ominous energy. Was this tree just a remnant of the Keeper's power? "Your strength is fading, Sarah," it sighed, almost mockingly. "What will you sacrifice to grasp the light?" Fear coursed through her veins, and suddenly she felt the urge to scream. "I won't sacrifice anyone. I will find a way to save them." Silence enveloped her, then the laughter erupted again, haunting her. Was it real? Or was it her mind twisting into madness? The shadows hissed and swirled, drawing closer as if sensing her wavering resolve. With one final effort, Sarah took a deep breath, centering herself as she tried to conjure the warmth of the lost, their memories anchoring her to reality. She called out names, each one a plea, a lifeline to pull her back from the brink. Emily. Ben. Ruth. Every name warded off the shadows momentarily, pushing back their hunger. But she could feel the dark center churning, waiting for her inevitable shift in desperation. Now, standing there, she realized something more chilling. The Keeper wasn't just a manifestation of her fears, it lurked in the depths of those she knew, waiting for her to offer a sacrifice of trust in exchange for survival. So many names yet to say, it taunted, sending a cold rush through her. As dread dripped through her, Sarah's thoughts raced. Would she truly say a name to save herself? She turned again to the mesmerizing glow of light at the clearing's edge, heart hammering, knowing something more sinister hovered beneath the surface. Would her next choice destroy her dreams of survival, or would it protect the only light left in her life? The echoes of laughter filled the air once more, and she knew, the shadows were still watching, waiting for the moment of her next act of desperation. What would it unveil? Her breath caught in her throat as she sensed movement behind her, each heartbeat teasing the boundaries of courage and dread. What lie was waiting to unfold? The air shimmered with a palpable tension as Sarah spun around, her pulse racing like an untamed beast. The laughter twisted in her ears, a dissonant symphony that matched the rhythm of her heart. Out of the shadows, something slithered closer, its presence harvesting her fear, feeding on it like a succubus devouring hope. "Show yourself," she demanded, the bravado barely masking her quaking terror. A rustle by the roots made her jump, and she stumbled back, nearly falling into the embrace of the ancient tree. The shadows were alive now, writhing in anticipation. Blood coursed hot through her veins. Courage surged within her in bursts, but it wasn't enough to drown the dread threatening to swallow her whole. "Ah, the brave little girl," a voice purred, softer now, infinitely more sinister. "Do you truly wish to save them?" The shadows curled around her ankles, a creeping chill snaking up her calves, as if the very roots were plotting to ensnare her. She could feel the weight of choice pressing down, heavier than the damp air around her. "I'll do anything," she declared, though uncertainty curled in her gut. "Just let me see them. Let me save them." Laughter erupted again, bright yet twisted, echoing among the trees. "Save them? Oh, Sarah, sweet Sarah, you've missed the point entirely." The voice was closer now, a mere breath behind her as she turned, but nothing was there. The underbrush rustled, mocking her, an orchestra of chaos playing just for her. "Names aren't enough," it hissed. "You must embrace the darkness. Only then will you find the light you seek." Panic unfurled in her chest. The chokehold of fear gripped her tightly. "No. I won't surrender myself to you." A sudden gale whipped through the clearing, tossing leaves and debris wildly, rattling the branches overhead. Inside her, the tide of resolve surged and crashed, dimming her raging heart with doubt. The very air seemed to whisper secrets, dark promises lurking at the edges of her sanity. But there was a flicker of clarity amidst the chaos, a memory of Ethan's eyes, filled with determination, urging her to find strength. Suddenly, the sinister allure of the shadows felt less enticing, less powerful. Name, she echoed, grounding herself with each pulse of the energy around her. I want to let my decisions haunt me. I will remember you to give strength, not weakness. With a steadier voice, she cried into the void, Nia. David. Chloe. I remember you all. I will find a way. The shadows recoiled, hissing like a serpent startled by light. Yet, even as she spoke their names, the darkness flared, pushing back against her words. Do you think that simply saying their names can defy the Keeper? It mocked. You are but a flicker in this abyss. The ground vibrated with rage, and a creaking sound echoed, testament to the ancient tree's dominance. It loomed larger in the electric tension, a monster of roots and bark, teetering on the brink of life and death. Sarah stumbled back, fighting against the encroaching shadows. What do you want from me? She shouted, each word a challenge thrown into the darkness. Your trust, it replied, its tone a mix of velvet sweetness and rancid malice. And in return, I will give you a choice steeped in blood. The shadows cascaded around her like a wave crashing on the shore, colder than ice, colder than the very ground beneath her. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and she could feel the shadows staring, demanding her surrender. What blood? She whispered, her voice trembling as she scanned the clearing. There was a dangerous silence, a void where the laughter had once echoed. Then, as if to answer, the shadows congealed before her, forming twisted faces of those she had lost, their mouths moving in sync though no sound emerged. Embrace the sacrifice, Sarah, they whispered, their eyes hollow yet pleading. Her stomach dropped. Each face was a reminder of what was at stake, of the horrors buried in the dark sacrifices that weighed heavily against the cost of survival. What have I truly understood? She mumbled, the questions drumming in her mind. The specters faded back into the shadows, leaving only the cold whisper of the Keeper. Choose wisely, little girl, and let the darkness show you the way. In that moment, the shadows surged toward her, a storm of darkness ready to engulf her whole. Sarah felt the pull, the tantalizing fate hovering just out of reach. Running wasn't an option anymore. She had to choose. But to whom would her choice lead? As darkness loomed closer, she whispered the first name that surfaced in her mind, hoping it might illuminate her path, but the weight of the Keeper's gaze pressed against her, waiting for the scream of despair that surely would come. What would she say next? Would it shift the tides of fate or seal her doom? Darkness thickened around Sarah, each heartbeat resonating louder than the echo of the Keeper's whisper. The shadowy forms, those haunting reflections of her friends, wavered just beyond her, their hollow eyes filled with desperate longing. She hesitated, each name lingering on her tongue like a poison. Chloe. She finally blurted, her voice trembling yet defiant. The name hung in the air, heavy with consequence. The shadows paused, swirling around her like a storm held in check. An ominous silence fell, the world contracting tight around her, pressing her down into the moist earth. She felt the weight of their expectant gaze, the anticipation crackling like electricity. Chloe. A voice darted back from the tumult, lighter than air yet thicker than dread. It seemed to bounce around the clearing, returning louder than before. You call my name, but what do you truly wish? Let me save you. Sarah shouted, new urgency igniting in her chest, pushing back against the dark. Just show me how to break this curse. Break it? The voice laughed, a sound that echoed with hollow glee. Ah, but dear Sarah, every choice bears a price. And salvation isn't free in this realm. The shadows writhed around her, contorting into grotesque figures that mirrored her fear. As the laughter settled into a haunting drone, Sarah felt a chill seep into her bones. She stood on the precipice of madness, uncertainty gnawing at her resolve. What do you want from me? Simple. The shadows converged, winding around her like serpents. Each syllable dripped with dark affection. You must sacrifice what you cherish most to save your friends. That is the secret to breaking our seals. Sudden clarity pierced her mind, slicing through the fog of dread. The peculiar visage of her younger brother flashed in her thoughts, a boy she had promised to protect. The very thought of losing him twisted her insides, tearing at her spirit. Her stomach churned, and she reeled back, desperately fighting the urge to detach from it all. No. She gasped. You can't make me sacrifice anyone. There has to be another way. The shadows whispered among themselves, their voice a cacophony of malevolent enjoyment, savoring her torment. That in their midst, fragments of the faces of her friends melded with her brother's startled expression. The intensity of their need reverberated through her, but so did her fear, the terror of not saving them, of losing them to this sinister game. Choose, the shadows hissed, now closing in on her. Choose your sacrifice or lose them all forever. The ancient tree raised its gnarled limbs, creaking with ancient wisdom, as if it were in concert with the shadows. A lone gust of wind rustled through the branches, sending chills down her spine. She clutched her chest, gasping for breath. Inside her boiled fury, though, an ember of hope ignited. You can't win. She screamed into the encroaching darkness. You may want my fear, but I will not give it to you. You can have nothing if I refuse. The shadows recoiled, releasing a guttural roar that echoed ominously, vibrating the ground beneath her. For a fleeting moment, her courage felt tangible, like a shield against the approaching storm. But before she could grasp it fully, the laughter surged once again, more unsettling, as if the darkness were mocking her bravery. Rejection has its consequences, little girl. When the dawn breaks, and your choices bloom, you will see what true sacrifice means. Suddenly, the shadows pulled back like an ocean retreating from a shore. Sarah stumbled as the familiar warmth of daylight pierced through the canopy above. It flickered, teasing her vision, and for a heartbeat, she caught sight of something. A fleeting glimpse of a figure. Was it Ethan? Heart pounding, she called, Ethan. Hope and dread coiled together as the world around her began to fade, swallowed by the relentless shadows looming just out of sight. As darkness receded, she took a step forward, determined to break free. But was she really leaving, or merely trading one prison for another? And then it hit her, a realization that coiled around her like a chain, dragging her back. What if the true sacrifice lay not in whom she lost but in what she had yet to uncover? The shadows flickered at the edges of her consciousness, waiting, watching. As her vision blurred and the clearing began to vanish, she knew only one thing: the choice she made next could change everything. Each decision echoed. What awaited her in this wicked world was as unpredictable as the shadows themselves. Sarah felt the urgency swell again. Where is Ethan? Where were her friends? But one thought lingered, teasing her sanity. Was this the real beginning of her nightmare? The shadows pulled back, revealing the sunrays that cut through the treetops, casting fragile beams over Sarah. She felt light seep into her bones, battling the heavy dread clinging to her. But the malicious laughter still echoed through the clearing. The keeper would not easily relinquish its claim on her, and she somehow knew this was not the end of the struggle. Ethan! She shouted again, her voice slicing through the eerie silence, the names of the lost twisting in her throat like a thorn. She could almost feel his presence beyond the tree, somewhere just out of reach, both a lifeline and a burden. Would holding on to him, holding on to all of them, be her undoing? Pick up the pace, Sarah, she murmured to herself as the shadows pulsed like a dark heartbeat. There wasn't much time. She could almost hear the whispers again, chanting their pleas, rising with the wind. Fight back. Fight. Chasing the sound of her own racing heart, she turned to the ancient tree, rooted in the soil of despair but still standing tall. Memories flickered in her mind, a montage of laughter, childhood battles, and promises made long ago. Ethan always looked to her for strength. She wouldn't let him down. She wouldn't let any of them fade into oblivion. Rule 2, embrace your fears, she whispered, soaking in its meaning. If she was going to break the cycle, she had to face the source of her fear, whatever loomed inside the shadows. I will not sacrifice my friends. I will not sacrifice myself. Once again, she channeled every ounce of courage, drawing closer to the gnarled tree, its ancient bark swirling with dark energy. The branches that had once seemed welcoming now curled like talons, a reminder of what she could lose or potentially save. You want names? I'll give you names, she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. But not just any names, watch me honor them. Sarah inhaled deeply and started to speak, channeling each lost face she had come to know. Megan. Jason. Chloe. Emily. The names tumbled out, each one a force of light that clashed against the darkness. Ben. Mia. Ruth. I remember you. The shadows hissed, recoiling from her declarations, retreating like smoke under a flame. With every word, a flicker of defiance illuminated the treetops. The keeper trembled, the scorn in its eyes dimming ever so slightly. Vain little girl, what do you think you are doing? It spat, its voice curling around her, wrapping her in icy judgment. You think your feeble memories can protect you? They belong to me. No, she shouted back, emboldened. They belong to themselves. The ground shook, echoes of anger shaking leaves from branches. You meddle in matters beyond your understanding, dear Sarah. Each name you whisper erodes your own hold on reality. Sarah felt a shudder of fear cascade down her spine. She was more than a vessel of pain, she was a beacon. Those names held power, voices, memories, souls waiting to be rescued. Each acknowledgement ignited a fire inside her. She could feel the swirling darkness press closer but also recoil. This was her choice. Every name was an echo of promises kept. Then came the moment she dreaded the most. The shadowed faces began to form in the corner of her vision. The ones she had lost. They swirled in and out of focus, whispering in urgent tones, their desperation thickening the air. Join us, they beckoned softly, melding into the horrid embrace of the darkness that encroached. No. She stepped back, shaking her head fiercely. I won't abandon you. I'll fight for you. Sacrifice, the keeper boomed. You must offer one of your own. Never. She yelled, feeling the strength of resolve flow through her like a shockwave. I won't forsake my own to save the lost. In that moment, clarity washed over her. She was not alone. The strength of her friends resonated within her. The names she had called were not just echoes of the past, but threads tying her to them, binding their fate together. Sarah took a step forward, the shadows retreating ever so slightly. I stand here as a guardian of their memories. I will not yield. The shadows fell. Silent, resisting for a heartbeat longer before the keeper flared with rage. Then face the consequences, girl. With an explosion of darkness, the shadows surged forward, their forms a terrifying weight that sought to crush her spirit. Panic shrieked through her, yet deep down, Sarah held on to hope. The light, the love of those she cherished, burned bright within her. She took in a deep breath and embraced every lingering memory, drawing strength from them. Each name resonated like a war cry, weaving its way through her. Focusing fiercely, she shouted into the darkness, Ethan. I'm coming for you. The shadows twisted and screamed, a cacophony of horror echoing around her. But still, she pressed on, refusing to falter. I will not let you drown them in despair. You can take everything I have, but I will not take anyone else's memory. As the darkness surged toward her, an explosion of light erupted from her soul, a defiant beam igniting from deep within, illuminating the shadows momentarily. The keeper shrieked, its form folding in on itself as it recoiled from the brilliance that pierced through the veil. In that radiant moment, Sarah saw Ethan's face, clearer than ever before, shining with hope and encouragement. His image flew forward, a beacon of love fighting against the tide. Light endures. Sarah exclaimed, grounded in the knowledge that love is an anchor against all storms. She pushed through, willing every piece of light and love to strengthen her resolve. The shadows shrieked in terror, the Keeper's power glowing dimmer as she radiated her defiance. "Come for me!" she screamed, and that one call summoned forth the names she carried within. Together, united in purpose, their glow intertwined, erupting through the shadows, creating an incandescent shimmer of hope that pushed through the darkness. One by one, the faces of those she had lost emerged around her. A family of light, all bound together, each whispering their love and longing gathered in strength of numbers, with the shadows collapsing and retreating, as if the daylight had finally pierced the night. Sarah felt the warmth of hope surround her heart. "We're not lost," she murmured, realizing the truth of her journey. And with that, the Keeper began to fade, a dark figure whimpering into non-existence. "You cannot win forever." But as the darkness lifted, Sarah found herself standing alone in the clearing, surrounded but supported by the uplifting echoes of love. Nothing held her back now she had defied the Keeper of Shadows. Hope surged like electricity through her veins. She knew the fight was not over but held the beautiful knowledge that love would always lead her home. "Until next time, shadows," she breathed softly, turning into the light. "I'll always remember you." And as the sun began to rise, painting the horizon with hues of orange and gold, Sarah felt the warmth of those she vowed to protect. Freedom filled her heart. The shadows may return, but so would she, bracing the darkness with every ounce of light she could muster. As she stepped forward into the new day, Sarah understood her purpose. The struggle wasn't just about survival, it was about hope, memories, and an unbreakable bond of love that would forever challenge the darkness. Now it was time to return and protect what truly mattered, armed with the knowledge that light was stronger than any darkness, and she must always remain vigilant. That if you enjoyed this journey, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to share this video. Smash that like button to keep the algorithm happy. Let us know your reactions and theories in the comments below. And don't forget to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.